Welcome to the Engineering Influence podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. And today we're going to be diving into a subject that is of great interest to our members, increasingly so, and it's actually going to be a big focus of our fall conference coming up at this point in this recording next month in October. And that is AI, and not just AI adoption, but doing so as a strategic lever to improve a business and to make things work more efficiently and to discover new ways to build business. And to do so, we're joined by two people who can speak to that on the provider side and then also the user side. Very pleased to be joined by Tanya Kennedy-Flood, Corporate Marketing Communications Leader at RJC Engineering, and then also Eric Liu. He's the Chief Product Officer at OpenAsset. And I want to welcome both of you to the program today. Thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
Likewise. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's a great subject and something that, we really want to delve into, especially since we're away from the whole idea of the new shiny thing and we're actually using AI. So, Tanya, let's start off with you and give us a little background on the firm, your size, kind of location, what you do, and kind of how you were approaching AI from the business side.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm with RJC Engineers. We are a North American-based engineering firm with offices across Canada and into the United States. We focus on structural engineering, everything from new design to restoration, building enclosures like high-end glass design or building science like the envelope, etc., and do work globally as well. So as you can imagine, with 700 RJCers, we're increasingly looking for efficiencies and ways to be able to better deliver our services to our clients, and certainly see that opportunity in AI. I think we started like many firms in this space and, fairly many businesses with a little bit of hesitation. So we knew that the potential was there, we could see it, but we wanted to make sure that we approached AI in a really thoughtful and intentional way, that we will provide them with enabled workflows and tools and a recognition that AI is not a fad. And there's a big change when that came that's really fundamental from what I'm going to call like traditional AI to more generative and perceptive AI, that fundamental shift to tools that we really can use in the AEC space to be very efficient and effective. So we as a firm made an intentional investment. We brought in a vice president of business technology, so someone with advanced expertise in this space that's forward thinking and able to help lead us on this journey, to help us understand, what's possible, how to implement AI responsibly. From there, we've put together strong foundations. So, and I would recommend this to everyone, an AI policy to give clarity to every RJCer on what is appropriate use of AI, and an AI working group to help guide and facilitate adoption across the firm. So having those in place allows people to be encouraged and to experiment, but it also gives us some safety. And it's been really key, quite honestly, to building the momentum within the firm. So we have started off small with measurable pilots. So things like, Microsoft Copilot or OpenAsset, where people can see the immediate value in their day-to-day work. Those existing systems that have AI capabilities, I think that's a really great place for firms to start. Our journey, it's really been about moving from curiosity to actually like structured exploration. So piloting these projects, improving workflows, not rushing in, but being very intentional and setting ourselves up on a thoughtful path that ensures AI will actually solve our business challenges and not create them.
Yeah. There are a couple of points there that are great to dig into. I want to before we do that, I want to go to Eric and kind of get your perspective from the OpenAsset side. With a firm like Tanya's going into like exploring this and getting this actually set. How did you work with RJC to help them on their journey and selecting the best product possible to get them started?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, honestly, for us, being that we are a tech company and we are a product company, we help RJC as well as all of our other customers by just providing a really great product. At the end of the day, if we focus on the product values of how we leverage new technology like AI to solve these pain points within the AEC industry and leverage it in a way that's intuitive and meaningful and safe and secure, it's really leveraging that new technology to solve these pain points in a very unique way. So obviously with our OpenAsset product, that is an AEC marketing platform that really helps AEC firms with digital asset management as well as winning new business from a proposal standpoint. It's really about really understanding the nuances of the industry and how we leverage AI in meaningful ways to help solve these problems. So that's kind of what we do specifically, not only just for RGC, but really for all of our customers as well as our prospects on making sure that we're building really great solutions that actually solve a pain point in a very meaningful way.
So let's dig in a little bit, because that's great, Eric, on the asset management, digital asset management, which is a massive undertaking, logistical challenge for a lot of firms, and then firms that have a lot of history and a lot of RFP responses, and you've got a wealth of information. Really approaching that and trying to figure out how we're going to add that, you're going to add that into a model and actually use that for, not just another tool, but, just something that can actually help create efficiency. So Tanya, how did the firm kind of prioritize or identify things that they wanted to actually apply with AI technology? How did you guys kind of start that process?
Well, it really resonates with me when you say history. We are a 77-year-old firm. So we've got a ton of data, a ton of assets, et cetera. So yeah, it can be hard to know, where do I even start, right? And sometimes it's starting by learning, like when Eric was talking about solving problems. Like one thing, for example, that was an early implementation of AI for us was in OpenAsset. You can search for images using native language. So I could put in like bridge at sunset, and now it goes through all of our images and will bring up bridges at sunset. Whereas before you'd have to like manually tag them, etc. So, going back to the question, deciding what to automate, it's not really about chasing a tool. It's really about solving your real business challenges, right? So recognizing like, what is it that's kind of painful that we know we could improve upon? Right? In the AEC industry, there are so many opportunities. Like research suggests that I believe it's 30% of current tasks could be automated by 2030. I personally think that's going to happen even earlier than that. The value comes from asking, which of those tasks actually matter to our people and ultimately to our clients, right? So looking at user workflows, that was a starting point for us, right? So automating what we already do, focusing on tools that fit into our existing processes rather than just, automation or AI for the sake of it. But it allows people can immediately see how it saves them time or how it benefits them. Having those tools that we're using or those workflows and putting things in place, like it's really a seamless and easy way for people to explore and use AI. And speaking of our people, deciding what to automate, we ask our people, like we involve them. They're the ones that know where the bottlenecks are, where the opportunities are in their day-to-day work. So we surveyed people and said, where could AI make your life easier? What opportunities do you think our firm should be capitalizing on? So that we were addressing meaningful problems rather than just imposing what we think is right from the top down. And then having those guardrails with that AI working group. So all ideas come through that group so that we can prioritize based on business problems and efficiency gains, integrations, as I mentioned, with existing systems. So really looking at what's the best balance between innovation and user value and ultimately, what we deliver to our clients. So that's what's going to make AI usable and meaningful long-term for any firm.
So I want to extend on that and bring Eric in on this as well, because Tanya, I want to hear about what you heard from that AI working group on what the pain points were and what hopeful solutions AI could help bring about. And then Eric, on your end, you know, working with clients, you know, how do you guide them through that process? I mean, a lot of the times it's hey, how can AI fix this, or how can we use this technology to make our lives easier? And you don't really know where to start because it's kind of a blank page. So, Tanya, starting off, I mean, what did you guys hear from that working group, and Eric, and you know, how do you help clients like RJC kind of throughout that journey?
Yeah, we heard everything. So all of the surveys went to all 700 people and then came back through the AI working group. And it was fascinating to see the commonalities, right? Everything from minute taking, for example, super easy, low hanging fruit for AI, to, you know, in Eric's world, proposals, right? Like so much, we are a sub consultant and we're also a prime consultant. And there's a lot of opportunity for AI to bring about great efficiencies and insights, quite honestly, for proposals. We heard everything too, though, from like what we could do on a client side with a parking garage, for example, and how we could utilize the data we have from years of designing these structures and repairing and maintaining these structures to bring real data-driven decision-making powers to our clients. So it was really quite interesting, and I'm glad that we have a really well-rounded group to help filter through to make decisions on where do we start and what should those priorities be.
Yeah, I think the way that Tanya and her working group at RJC approached this problem is really the ideal way. Like, she primarily focused on what are the pain points that we're trying to solve, and then really got feedback and survey research on some of the things and opportunities within the company that potentially could be benefited from automation via AI, which is honestly just really the proper way to do it. It's really no different than how we do it as a tech company from a product perspective, really just focusing on the customer problem and the pain point first, and then seeing how we leverage new technology to solve it. AI these days is so amazing and innovative that a lot of tech companies out there are kind of starting with the technology of AI and seeing like where to apply it to solve pain points, which honestly is really a backwards way of doing product development, because you're basically just looking at the technology and figuring out how do I shoehorn it and just give it the label of AI as a marketing gimmick, when you're not really necessarily solving these pain points that are really worth solving. So the way that Tanya approached it with RJC is exactly how we approach things from a product company perspective, is really truly understanding pain points within an organization and then seeing where AI can potentially help with that. In the realm of automation, you know, part of our, being able to apply it well is understanding the technology as well and figuring out, is AI good at this or not so good at this? Because I think in this, overhyped world where AI is seen as this magic silver bullet that pretty much can be applied to anything and everything and be really good at it, that's actually not really the case. There are some areas where AI is really, really effective in, like automation, like content generation, like conversational UI. But there's also a whole bunch of things that AI is not quite there yet in terms of being really, really effective, which is around prediction and forecasting, or planning and strategy, or truly autonomous systems that require zero human interaction. So I think understanding the technology, what it's good at, as well as its limitations, is also something that obviously is very, very key for me and OpenAsset. It's just making sure that we're applying the right technology in the right moments to solve actual use cases.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I find that in my work in Tanya's world and in kind of the marketing and communication side, it seems like every product has something shoehorned into it to be AI, or hey, here's our new AI feature, and they rush to market, and sometimes it's half baked, right? And usually they're trying to apply the technology without much direction, right? And it's important to understand exactly why are you using this and whether it's a good fit or not. It's kind of that the shiny object kind of trap that you fall into, right? That it's brand new and you want to apply it, and then you realize what the limitations are. For responding to opportunities for new business, for going back and using a lot of historical data to kind of cut the process of having the idea to completion. I mean, Tanya, I mean, how much savings have you found on the business development side of being able to go after business, complete an RFP? How are you applying the technology to allow you to reduce the workload on the business generation side of things?
I would say like right now, well, backing that up, before we implement anything, we do look at that business case, right? Like, what is it that we expect this to save us in terms of time, or the value we expect from a product, so that we can measure, are we actually getting this, right? We don't have a system in place for a long enough period right now, like a full years, for where we've had full training, implementation, benefits to measure year over year to give an exact number. But I know, for example, with the Shred AI product that OpenAsset has, I did a lot of calculations on that and have been monitoring from our group. They were in their early adoption and use of it, that I expect that team's going to save 30% in terms of time. And we have a large marketing team that's massive, that's people, right? And allow, just speaking strictly on the marketing side, and even in business development, those are roles that traditionally in an AEC firm are very reactive, because it's hard to find time to be proactive. And the goal here is not only a better product, but to allow people to capitalize on their most valuable asset, which is their time, so that we can do that more value-driven work, right? That thinking piece, and reduce, shredding an RFP, right? Like all of those pieces that could easily be automated.
Yeah. And I think that's, in my experience also, using it in how we've applied it here at ACEC, it is freeing up that time to be able to do other things. It's that more strategic top level thinking that you can do,
100%.
because some of these initial tasks can be handled pretty quickly out of the gate by applying AI to it. It's not going to replace anyone, but it's going to allow those people to have more time to think at a broader level. Eric, what's your take on that? I mean, how are your tools kind of designed with that in mind?
Yeah, it's exactly designed with that same philosophy in mind. Like AEC marketing teams are often very small but mighty. So it's more about how do we leverage AI to remove some of the tedious manual tasks that they are burdened with, to free up their time to be a lot more strategic and creative, which is really what they do best, right? So a lot of what we do with Shred AI is being able to automate some of these manual tasks, and also to help provide with surfacing content and information that would otherwise be buried under, pages and pages of documents and PDFs. When you talk about RJC, like Tanya said, they've been around for 77 years. When you think about 77 years worth of content to dig through in like a SharePoint server, for example, it's nearly impossible to find things in a needle in a haystack type of way. So a lot of what we're doing with Shred AI is, how do we give people access to that information without having to, reach out to somebody who knows somebody that might have worked on a proposal 7 years ago, giving you access to all that information at the touch of your fingertips via a conversational kind of chat interface that really just speaks to your entire proposal library content. So those are just some of the examples that I think aligns with the philosophy that Tanya mentioned, as well as what you mentioned around how do we, enable AEC marketing teams to work on things that are a lot more strategic and creative, as opposed to some of these tedious manual tasks.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You have a question, then you realize the person with the answer left the organization 5 years ago. The files aren't organized. You have to scramble and waste time, a lot of frustration and angst to try to get answers to things, and to be able to have this repository of information that it's kind of your you don't have to worry about that institutional knowledge, right? It's it's definitely a savings for our own sanity, right?
That's
um,
it.
you know, how did you, Tanya, with that much data? I mean, some of it must have not have been digitized, right? You must have had to have gone through the process of getting that into a digital format. I mean, how did you approach just that? When you talk about digital asset management, it's that creating that workflow to allow you to have a consistent way of putting in information so that you can do those natural language searches of a bridge at sunset and you get the appropriate things. I mean, how much of a culture change, or was it a culture change for your organization to kind of get to that point?
Yeah, I think it depends on what those assets are. So things like, photography assets, no, like they didn't even know it happened, right? It just happened. We just put this layer on top that now allows us to search those assets. But for bigger things, like more of like the project data, the fee data, proposal data, etc., that's really been a challenge that we've had to address, right? I feel that a lot of folks, whenever they start to look at AI, they try to move right into implementation and they underestimate the importance of data quality, like exactly what you're talking about, right? AI is really only as good as the information that you give it. And, at best, it's really risky if you don't have that data set up correctly. So firms like ourselves, like you need to invest in clean, structured, and protected data if you want AI to deliver real value, and how that should be structured and how that should be set up, and getting consistency across your data streams, right? So we're quite honestly like have been moving in, I'll call it blocks of where this is happening, but we're in the process right now of really doing that big data migration and that big data cleaning so that we can fully utilize AI across a variety of systems.
And I think this is where the structure is so critically important. The fact that you did bring on someone who would run the data operation, the fact that you do have an AI working group. We've done research with the ACEC Research Institute on AI adoption. We've done kind of look-ins to different ways that firms are doing things, and it's interesting the number of firms that don't have positions that are very data centric, that are chief data officers or chief data security officers. And I think that's going to be one of the things that is going to define success for firms in the future, is who has been strategic at the top level to create the positions to enable the collection, management, security of data. Eric, what are you seeing in the marketplace with AEC firms in that area? And Tanya, how important do you think that was for the firm to adopt early, so you can, to your point, and you don't rush into adoption? It's that strategic consideration of how are we actually going to use the technology and who's going to control it.
Yeah, I can speak to kind of like what I see out there. I think organizations that have been ahead of the curve in this regard are definitely more set up to succeed, I guess, in this future world. To Tanya's point, the whole concept about data and the integrity and quality of that data, it's the same thing of like garbage in, garbage out, right? So the more that there's a strategic alignment across the company that really prioritizes making sure that the data is clean, but also making sure that there's a collaborative working group like RJC has that allows the different functions within the company to make sure that they're tying and connecting the dots together to allow AI to also help map that data, I think is also really important. So as an example, when you think about, leads within a marketing department that then gets converted into a sales qualified lead in the sales department, and then eventually to close, the labeling and the way that you do your formatting all needs to somewhat align so that AI can connect the dots quite easily across the journey of a lead, for an example. But you can use that analogy to apply to pretty much anything within an organization. So just making sure that there's almost a data sanitization process to make sure that all the different functions and the data that weaves between them is all well connected through good data quality, I think is obviously really important. So that's kind of what I see some companies doing really well.
Yeah, same. I feel that more and more firms are doing a lot of like what we're doing, right? Bringing in data analysts, bringing in more business service professionals to lead this and to help support this. We even have a project manager that's dedicated to transformative projects, is what we call them, right? So that's everything from how we're rolling out and preparing for a new CRM, for example, or an ERP system, having people that it's not off the side of their desk anymore, right? And that they're actual specialists, like a knowledge management coordinator, that people that understand their role and their function and those possibilities and aren't just sort of learning it, but can guide the firm and give that support. It's really fundamental when you get to a larger scale, right? If you want to make things scalable.
I think that's a really good point, because what we're seeing in some of our research about firm of the future and what is the engineering firm of 2030 going to look like, 2035 going to look like, I think we're going to see a lot more support positions in project management that are definitely information and data based, that are supporting the project teams from beginning to end of project, to coordinate, organize, corral all the data, maintain the structure and integrity of the data, and actually allow these AI programs to do what they do because they're kind of in charge of it. And it's going to be that interesting diversification of talent within a firm. You're always going to need the PEs to sign the plans. You're going to need somebody who's physically working on the work and making sure that it's done the correct way. But there are going to be a lot more people who are actually in that support role, because we are not at that point, to Eric's point, of being completely autonomous and allowing systems to do their thing without human intervention. What do you guys think is probably the three best tips that you could provide for firms that want to get started here? Because you have a lot of best practices that you talked about here, but if you could crystallize them down to maybe three of the best things that you could do at the outset. Tanya, what do you think it would be? And then Eric, from your position at OpenAsset, what do you think?
I'm going to start with what I think is you're starting. Today's day one. You want an AI policy in place. Most firms, I think, you should know, your employees are probably using ChatGPT, but you should make sure that they're using it responsibly, right? And have something to stand on and to help educate people and back that up. I believe that would be the first thing I would say is most important, is an AI use policy, something that provides employees and protects the firm too with what is compliance, what is data security, what is ethical use. And then pairing that like we did, I feel it's working very well with that AI user group that's guiding that adoption, right? And helping to set those measurable goals that you spoke of earlier, right? Like understanding what are the KPIs, what are the returns that we expect out of this. Second, I would say is change management. And I feel that's one that's often overlooked. A lot of times we'll just throw in a tool and we don't take the time to invest in the user adoption, right? So bringing about what is this change? What is the value? Giving people the training and the support that they need so that it can have that real impact that we're looking for. So training people, if it's a ChatGPT even, or Microsoft Copilot, or even OpenAsset, how do you prompt it correctly so that it's really effective? And then also teaching people you do need to critically review this, right? And what those outputs are. There has to be a human element, as Eric mentioned. And then third, it ties back to both of those, would be making it measurable, right? Knowing what is the outcome that you are looking to achieve and measuring that. You don't just walk away, right? Is it doing what it says it will do? Are we getting the benefit we expected? And if not, why? So yeah, I guess I'd be really continuing to look at the business case of it.
Those are three good tips that I think anybody out there listening should take to heart. Eric, how about you?
Yeah, I love Tanya's. I think that the training and the measurable results are two fantastic ones. I think on the tech product side, I think the first one is around making sure that we're designing products with really intuitive design. AI is obviously new technology. There are some obviously people that are very experienced and experts in prompt engineering and typing up really great prompts, but it's the way you prompt AI and the results that you get can vary really greatly depending on how well your prompt is structured, right? And I think it's not the best to always expect people to be prompt engineers, for example. So how do we make sure that we design products that are so intuitive that people can still get fantastic results without having to be a prompt engineer as a side hustle in their, aside from their day job, right? So I think number one is knowing the technology, knowing the variability around how the technology performs, and making sure that you're designing your products with really great design so that anyone can get really effective use out of it without having to just be an expert in AI. So I think that's the first thing I would recommend. I think the second thing is around creating AI that's very industry specific. Like for OpenAsset, we've always been very AEC focused. That's always been part of our DNA. But AI off the shelf, whether you use ChatGPT or Claude, it performs really, really well. But when you dive into specific verticals and industries, whether it's legal, whether it's medical, whether it's AEC, that's the nuances of the AEC industry is very unique, obviously. So I think for us at OpenAsset, we're always trying to create kind of custom bespoke AI that's very, very fine tuned and specific to the AEC industry, just to make sure that it's a lot more effective. It can detect things and recognize things that your regular off the shelf AI wouldn't necessarily be able to. So I think the second thing that we're spending a lot of time and focus on, and my second recommendation is to create very specific industry specific AI that will be just a lot better than a generic vanilla type of AI there. And I think the third thing is making sure that you're adaptable. I think within tech these days, especially with generative AI, things are changing and moving extremely rapidly. There's new models that are coming out from different providers on a week by week, monthly basis. There's new open source technologies out there that's appearing every single day. How do we make sure that we're agile and we're fast and we're adapting to the constant new technology changes, but also adapting to the needs of the industry and moving at this breakneck speed to make sure that we're constantly evolving and iterating on our products and our solutions? I think that's the third thing that I would recommend is just making sure that you're constantly adapting to the changing landscape that is both tech and AEC these days.
Yeah, those are also three good examples. I always feel like these conversations can go on forever because there's so much to dig into. Just listening to that, thinking about doing a prompt engineering 101, because it's not as though you just walk into it and know how to do a prompt, right? That you're right. Your results vary wildly by what you put in, garbage in, garbage out. So there's so much to dig into. We covered a lot here. I mean, is there anything else that you want to bring up, Tanya or Eric, that you think our audience should know from this conversation?
Yeah, one thing that I should have mentioned earlier that really brought forward the case for AI and the recognition to our executive of the importance of this was speaking to a CEO of another engineering firm in the space who would be viewed as a very traditional engineering firm. They said that they were making a strategic shift, that they're no longer an engineering firm, they're a data firm. And that's the level of importance that this is today in our industry. And I see that in ourselves, and I know that is true of many others. And there are such incredible opportunities beyond the ones that I think we're all looking at and we're all seeing, like, oh yeah, we can automate minutes now. We can, do virtual sessions like we're doing here today and then have something generate the notes and the takeaways. that there's other opportunities that, going to what Eric was saying about industry specific, think of like what is firm specific and the opportunity that we have that really sets us apart, right? That can bring that value to a client. If you have tons of data about lifespan of a certain material type, for example, or about a portfolio of buildings, like how can you use AI to help inform decision making with that, right? To bring next level value. There's so much that we're not even aware of today that's going to be happening for us all tomorrow. And we shouldn't be scared of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I remember sitting in a meeting at FIDIC, the international group for engineering companies, and they had a former Silicon Valley engineer who in 2019, and he was saying, "You're not an engineering firm, you're a data firm." And the response from the audience then was a mix, right? Because we were right at the beginning of the kind of AI revolution. And I think that audience would have a definitely different reaction hearing that today. So that's a great takeaway. Eric, how about you?
Yeah, I think similar to Tanya's point, I think right now we're still only scratching the surface here, right? So when you think about how the general public sees AI and interacts with AI these days, it's primarily in really just two forms. It's automation and things that it does on the background, or it's chatting with it from a conversational UI perspective. But the next wave of AI is really around how do we have like agentic workflows where we have multiple AI agents that are all collaborating together to complete an end-to-end workflow here. So when you think about that world, that is, trained AI agent specialists that are really great at doing that one task. So you could almost think of it as an assembly line where, you have a bunch of, AI agents that are then completing their individual task and then passing that information on to another AI agent. Once you start to daisy chain and connect complete flow using agents, that's where it really unlocks the power. So no longer are you having a one-to-one interaction chatting with an AI, but you're actually having AI do a whole series of connected tasks for you to just really truly automate things and really reduce manual labor. So, an example of this is you could leverage AI to not only find content from your past proposals, but then pass it along to another agent that will then take that information and create a first draft proposal for you, and then even design the proposal on your behalf as well. So being able to just think about workflows in a more meaningful way and how you apply AI, that's really the next wave that we're talking about here. So I think, I think there's a lot of really promising, aspects about AI that we're only scratching the surface on these days.
Well, if that's the future, then all the work that Tanya and RJC is doing is going to pay off. So anybody listening out there who is at the beginning of the journey or trying to figure out exactly how to approach this, I think the big takeaway here is a measured strategic approach. Get leadership buy-in at the beginning, get a working group and get somebody in there who can manage this, and then figure out what the business case before you just go in and jump into the deep end. A lot more we could go into. I think we should have some follow-up programming on some specific assets and aspects of AI implementation, but we'll leave it there for now. Tanya and Eric, thank you so much for being part of the program. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, this has been great. Thanks for having us.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for having us, Chef.
Fantastic. And again, this has been Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. Before we go, I'll make a plug. I know that we get a lot of views on YouTube, and a lot of you are watching but not subscribing. So take that time now. Hit the notification button, ring the bell, hit the like. It helps the program immensely, and I appreciate you for watching. And again, this has been Engineering Influence podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies, and we'll see you next time.